Capricorn, have you noticed something lately? Everything on the outside still moves in rhythm. Work, responsibility, the weight you've learned to carry without complaint. But inside, something feels different. As if an old foundation is quietly trembling, not collapsing, just enough that you can no longer ignore it. January 19th doesn't arrive for Capricorn with drama. It arrives in silence, in repeating thoughts about direction, about the true value of the effort you've been giving, about a question you've been avoiding for a long time. Who am I building this for, and why? When Venus meets Pluto in Cancer, it doesn't ask you to tear everything down. It simply shines a light on the place where you've been enduring in silence. And when that light turns on, you begin to notice something important. Some structures that once helped you stand strong are now the very ones holding you back. And from that moment, a new current of thought begins to open, quietly within you. Capricorn rarely calls those repeating thoughts an obsession. You're used to giving them different names: responsibility, planning, thinking ahead, being prepared. You tell yourself you're just doing what needs to be done. But maybe, somewhere deeper, you can feel that this time is different. A certain thought keeps returning. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady enough that you can't brush it aside. Like a very soft knock on the door of your inner world. Over and over again. Patiently waiting for you to open it. Capricorn isn't easily shaken. You learned how to stand firm early in life. How to carry weight. How to endure. How to keep moving even when you barely had time to breathe. So when a thought quietly follows you during this period, your first reaction is often self-blame. Why am I thinking so much? Why can't I let this go? Why does something that once felt familiar now keep pulling at me? But if you slow down just a little, you might begin to notice something. This isn't a problem that needs fixing. It feels more like a message. Capricorn is a sign of structure, of foundations built through time, discipline, and persistence. You don't chase empty dreams. You want things that can stand, things that can be proven by years of effort. That's why, when Pluto stirs something deep inside you, it doesn't arrive as an emotional storm. It arrives as quiet, honest questions. What am I building this for? What am I really striving toward? And does what I'm protecting still nourish me the way it once did? What keeps your mind occupied may not be a person at all. It may be a direction. Not a sudden impulse, but a low, persistent feeling that a certain structure in your life has reached the point where it needs to be re-examined. Capricorn often ties self-worth to what you can do, what you can achieve, and how much you can carry for others. But during this time, that persistent thought may be reflecting a quieter truth. That your value is not measured only by endurance, that you don't have to be the strongest person in the room to deserve respect. Pluto doesn't arrive to destroy Capricorn. It comes to strip away armor that has grown too old. Armor that once kept you alive but now leaves you exhausted. Those repeating thoughts are like a mirror placed in front of you. They don't reflect failure. They reflect a maturity that's been postponed for far too long. They ask you something simple, yet profound. If you no longer had to prove anything to anyone, how would you choose to build your life? Capricorn rarely allows itself to pause just to feel. You're used to moving forward. But sometimes these unexpected quiet moments carry the greatest value. When you allow yourself to sit with a thought, without judgment, without rushing to fix it, you begin to hear something else. Not the voice of pressure, but the voice of truth inside you. The truth that you deserve a life that is not only stable but meaningful. Not only strong on the outside, but peaceful within. This persistent thought isn't asking you to change everything right now. It doesn't push you off the path you know. It simply places a gentle question at a turn you pass too quickly. And sometimes just stopping long enough to really see that question is how a deep transformation begins. Quietly, without witnesses. But enough that when you step forward again, your steps no longer feel as heavy as they once did. And maybe that's the heart of the message meant for you. Not to make you doubt yourself, but to help you understand yourself more clearly. Not to abandon what you've built, but to continue building on a foundation that is more honest with your own inner truth. And then, when Venus meets Pluto, what Capricorn begins to feel is not a shock, but a very deep, quiet vibration. Venus speaks of what you value, Pluto speaks of what can no longer remain in its old form. When these two energies meet, Capricorn is not forced to change right away. You simply begin to see more clearly. You start to notice that some values which once helped you stand strong are now the very ones requiring you to brace yourself every single day, often without realizing it. Capricorn has always taken pride in endurance. You're used to keeping everything steady, even when it no longer feels gentle on the inside. You call it responsibility. You call it maturity. You call it doing what needs to be done. But during this time, something unfamiliar begins to surface. Not dissatisfaction, not rebellion, just a quiet question. Do I still truly value this? Or am I holding on to it simply because I've been carrying it for so long? Venus doesn't ask you to abandon your values. It only illuminates the places where those values have been distorted by obligation. It might be a goal you've pursued for years that no longer makes you feel alive. It might be a role you perform exceptionally well, yet one that drains far more energy than it gives back. Or it could be a measure of success you once believed in completely until you realized it no longer reflects who you are becoming. Pluto does not destroy what you've built. It questions the foundation beneath it. It asks, if you no longer had to prove anything to the world, what would you choose to keep for yourself? Capricorn rarely allows itself to be honest with feelings like these. There's a fear that if you look at them too closely, everything might fall apart. But in truth, what's shaking isn't your life. It's the outdated values that have grown rigid and no longer adapt. During these days, you may notice yourself feeling more tired, even though you aren't doing more than before. You may still complete the work, still keep your promises, still fulfill every role. But the joy feels thinner, the satisfaction less complete. That isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign that something within you is asking to be updated. Not so you can chase something new, but so you can live more honestly with what has already changed inside. When Venus meets Pluto, it doesn't force Capricorn to let go right away. It simply creates a rare moment of honesty. A moment where you allow yourself to admit that some things were absolutely right in one chapter of your life, but no longer fit in this one. And that realization does not make you weaker. It shows that you've grown mature enough to stop clinging to values out of fear of losing a sense of safety. Capricorn understands that every strong structure requires maintenance. And sometimes, maintenance doesn't mean reinforcing. Sometimes it means removing what has become too heavy. Old beliefs about always needing to be strong, about carrying everything alone, about placing yourself last. Those beliefs once helped you survive. But now, they may be preventing you from fully experiencing the life you've worked so hard to build. The instability you're feeling is not collapse. It's more like a building being inspected after years of standing firm. Not to tear it down, but to make sure it still aligns with who you are becoming. And in that quiet space, Capricorn begins to understand something important. That true value isn't only found in what you manage to hold on to, but also in recognizing when something has completed its purpose. And from that honesty, a new direction begins to open. Quietly, without announcements, without the need to explain. Just a lighter feeling when you think about the future. As if you're no longer required to carry everything from the past. As if you're finally allowed to choose what stays. And to continue building, this time on a foundation that is both solid and spacious enough for you to breathe. And then, as the energy of Aquarius becomes more present, Capricorn isn't asked to feel more deeply or more intensely. You've already felt enough. What Aquarius brings now is a different perspective. Wider, higher, calmer. It invites you to step back just a little, far enough to see the full picture of what's been unfolding in your life, instead of standing inside it and simply enduring. Capricorn is used to viewing life through the lens of responsibility. You measure things by stability, by efficiency, by long-term results. But Aquarius offers another way of observing. Without judgment, without pressure, just seeing clearly. During these days, you may notice that you're thinking about the same issue, the same direction, the same question, but without the heaviness you felt before. Instead, there's just enough distance for you to wonder why it keeps returning. Why an image of a different future, a different way of living, a different way of existing, quietly appears, fades, and then comes back again. Aquarius doesn't push you to act right away. It doesn't demand immediate change, and it doesn't ask you to abandon what you already have. What it does is help you understand. To understand that these recurring thoughts aren't distractions. They're more like mental sketches. They're not sent to chase after, but to familiarize yourself with. To gently introduce the idea that the next version of you may look different from anything you've imagined before. Capricorn is careful with the future. You don't trust vague plans. You need structure. You need foundations. You need something that can stand the test of time. Aquarius understands that, so it doesn't arrive with emotional chaos. It arrives with very clear questions. If you were no longer bound by old expectations, what would you choose to build? If you no longer had to prove your worth through burden and pressure, where would you place your focus? And if you were allowed to redesign your life in a rhythm that truly fits you, what would you keep? And what would you finally allow to fall away? During this period, you may find yourself observing yourself more closely, watching how you react, watching the things that once created tension, but no longer carry the same weight. Aquarius brings clarity, not a cold clarity, but a deeply human one. It helps you see that not every emotion needs to be solved right away. Some only need to be understood, placed in the right space. And then they naturally settle. Capricorn doesn't easily release control, but Aquarius doesn't take control away from you. It simply shows you that there are some things you no longer need to control, some structures that were necessary in the past, but if kept unchanged, will limit your vision of the future. And when you see this, not through emotion, but through understanding, change begins to happen very naturally. These days, you may notice yourself thinking about life in a less personal way, less focused on doing things right, and more focused on living truthfully. Aquarius opens a new understanding of freedom for Capricorn. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom from constraints that are no longer necessary. Freedom from the constant need to prove that you are strong enough, capable enough, reliable enough. And from this new perspective, the future no longer feels like pressure to reach. It begins to feel like space. Space that can be designed slowly, step by step, with small adjustments. No need to rush, no need to be perfect. Only the need to be honest with what is changing inside you. Aquarius doesn't promise that everything will be easier. It simply shows you that when you see more clearly, you no longer have to brace yourself as much. And sometimes that lightness is the clearest sign that you're moving in the right direction. Not because you've arrived, but because you've stopped fighting yourself along the way. And then, the most noticeable thing for Capricorn during this period is not a major event. There is no explosion forcing you to change. No dramatic, fated moment that turns everything upside down overnight. The transformation happens differently. It's subtle, it's slow, and if you're not paying attention, you might even miss it. But when you look back, you realize you're no longer the same person you once were. After January 19th, Capricorn may begin to notice very small shifts in how you respond to life. Things that once tightened your chest no longer take over your mind. Pressures that used to feel unquestionable suddenly seem worth reconsidering. Not because you've grown weaker, but because you no longer need to brace yourself the way you once did to prove anything. You may notice you're no longer holding on to structures that exhaust you simply because you're used to carrying them. You stop convincing yourself that enduring just a little longer will somehow make everything okay. You stop forcing yourself to remain in roles that completed their purpose a long time ago. And what's remarkable is that this quiet release no longer comes with guilt. It arrives naturally, as if you're simply returning weight that was never meant to be yours forever. Capricorn doesn't trust vague change. You believe in process, in building step by step. Pluto understands that. So the transformation you experience doesn't tear down the foundation, it refines it from within. Like reinforcing the internal structure of a building so the levels above can stand more securely in the future. You don't need to announce that you've changed. You simply live differently, quietly, but unmistakably. You may begin to say no more often without feeling the need to explain. You may step back from situations where you once felt you had to prove your competence. You may stop reacting impulsively to other people's expectations. These shifts don't make your life less effective. On the contrary, they allow you to use your energy more wisely. You no longer scatter your strength, maintaining things that no longer fit who you are becoming. The deepest transformation for Capricorn now lies in your relationship with yourself. You begin to understand that your value isn't measured by carrying everything alone. That being strong doesn't mean enduring endlessly, and that you're allowed to choose a rhythm of life that is not only stable, but sustainable for your inner world. Pluto doesn't ask you to become someone else. It simply helps you shed roles that have grown too tight. Old beliefs about always having to sacrifice, about always standing at the front, about being the support that never wavers. Those roles once helped you survive, but now they may be limiting your ability to fully experience the life you've built. As those layers fall away, you don't lose strength. You change how you use it. Less defensive, less self-forcing, and because of that, stronger in a very different way. In quiet moments, you may notice that you breathe more deeply. That sleep comes more easily. And even though responsibilities remain, even though goals still exist, you no longer feel stretched thin by them. Life doesn't become perfect, but it becomes more honest. And for Capricorn, honesty is always the strongest foundation on which to continue building. This change doesn't ask to be announced to the world. It only asks to be recognized and respected. Because when Pluto completes its work, what remains isn't a completely new Capricorn. It's a Capricorn who has quietly left behind what is no longer necessary. And from there, you move forward lighter, more aware, and calm enough to know that you don't need to return to who you used to be to prove your worth. And in the end, when Capricorn looks back on this entire journey, you may realize that the most important thing these recurring thoughts have given you is not a specific outcome, not a clear answer about the future, and not a decision that needs to be made right away. What they offer instead is clarity, a quiet kind of clarity, not loud, not dramatic, but deep enough that you can no longer return to the way you used to see things. This obsession, if it can even be called that, doesn't arrive to push you toward achievement. It comes to show you what values you are truly living by, not the values society assigns to you, not the values measured by accomplishment or endurance, but the values reflected in how you allow yourself to live each day, how you allow yourself to feel when you step into familiar roles, and how you allow yourself to choose what you want to keep carrying along the long road ahead. Capricorn often expresses love through action, through responsibility, through staying, even when you are exhausted. But during this time, the thoughts that refuse to leave may be quietly whispering something different. That love doesn't always need to come with weight, that you deserve connections that don't require constant defense, connections that don't demand that you always be strong, that don't ask you to trade your inner peace for outer stability. The clarity you gain doesn't make you cold or distant. On the contrary, it makes you more honest. Honest about your limits. Honest about what has grown too tight. And honest about your desire to live a life that is not only steady, but spacious enough to breathe. Capricorn keeps moving forward. But this time, you move with a different understanding of yourself. You may begin to realize that you don't need to carry everything to prove your worth. You don't need to hold everything together out of fear of disappointing others. You don't need to remain inside structures that once kept you safe, but no longer reflect who you are now. These realizations don't cause you to abandon discipline or responsibility. They simply help you use them in a more humane way, starting with yourself. And at a deeper level, what this obsession is really trying to show you may be something very simple. That you don't need to chase an ideal version of yourself. That you don't need to become someone else to deserve respect or love. The moment you stop avoiding the feelings that have already matured within you, the moment you allow yourself to live in your true rhythm, that alone is a profound step forward. For Capricorn, this is not the beginning of a new chase. It's not another goal to conquer. It's a necessary pause. A pause to look back, to adjust, and to continue building. This time with a deeper understanding of what truly nourishes you, what allows you to stand strong without exhausting yourself. And as you move forward from here, others may not notice the change right away, but you will feel it in how you choose to respond, in how you set boundaries, in how you honor your time and your energy. Life doesn't become easier overnight, but it becomes clearer. And for Capricorn, that clarity is the strongest foundation on which to continue building a life that is both resilient and spacious enough for peace.